Imagine a world without sound. No engines, no electricity, no supply chains. The last grocery store emptied 3 weeks ago. The last restaurant closed before that. The ground is frozen or barren. The animals have fled or died. You stand in a landscape that offers nothing obvious to eat. In this scenario, the average modern human begins to die within 30 to 40 days. Not from violence, not from disease, from simple caloric deficit. The body consumes its fat reserves, then its muscle tissue, then its organs. Death by starvation is slow, quiet, and systematic. Yet this scenario, or something far worse, occurred repeatedly throughout human prehistory. Ice ages lasting thousands of years, volcanic winters blocking sunlight for decades, droughts that turned forests into dust, megafauna extinctions that eliminated primary food sources within generations. And yet, humans survived. Not just individuals, entire populations, lineages that stretch unbroken to the present day. They did not merely endure these collapses, they navigated them with such precision that their skeletal remains often show fewer signs of chronic malnutrition than medieval European farmers. This raises a question that modern survival thinking cannot easily answer. How did humans without agriculture, without refrigeration, without written knowledge, without any of the systems we consider essential, avoid starvation during total civilizational collapse? The popular imagination holds that prehistoric life was a constant struggle against hunger. We picture gaunt figures wandering endless landscapes, always one failed hunt away from death. This image is not merely incomplete, it is largely false. Skeletal analysis from Paleolithic burial sites across multiple continents reveals something unexpected. Harris lines, the horizontal bone markers that indicate severe childhood malnutrition, appear less frequently in many hunter-gatherer populations than in early agricultural societies. Dental hypoplasia, the enamel defects caused by nutritional stress during tooth development, follows similar patterns. The bodies of prehistoric humans often tell a story of episodic scarcity, not chronic starvation. This does not mean prehistoric life was comfortable. It was not. Hunger existed, lean seasons existed, but there is a critical difference between hunger and starvation that modern observers frequently conflate. Hunger is a signal. It indicates that caloric intake has temporarily dropped below expenditure. The body responds by mobilizing stored energy, reducing non-essential metabolic functions, and increasing motivation to seek food. Hunger is uncomfortable but survivable for extended periods. Starvation is a system failure. It occurs when the body has exhausted all compensatory mechanisms and begins consuming essential tissue to maintain basic functions. Starvation kills not through hunger, but through organ failure, immune collapse, and eventual cardiac arrest. Prehistoric humans experienced hunger regularly. Many modern humans in developed nations have never experienced true hunger in their entire lives. But the archaeological record suggests that prehistoric populations managed hunger in ways that prevented it from cascading into starvation, even under conditions that would collapse modern food systems within weeks. To understand why prehistoric humans avoided starvation, we must first understand starvation as an engineering problem, rather than a simple absence of food. Starvation occurs when three systems fail simultaneously. First, immediate caloric intake drops below minimum survival requirements. Second, stored body energy becomes insufficient to bridge the gap. Third, no accessible mechanism exists to restore intake before reserves deplete entirely. Modern industrial food systems are optimized for efficiency under stable condition. They deliver maximum calories at minimum cost through long supply chains, centralized processing, and just-in-time inventory management. This efficiency creates fragility. When any node in the chain fails, whether transportation, refrigeration, processing, or distribution, the entire system degrades rapidly. The average modern city contains approximately 3 days of food inventory at any given time. This is not a failure of planning, it is a feature of efficiency optimization. Maintaining larger reserves costs money, requires infrastructure, and reduces profit margins. Prehistoric food systems operated on inverse principles. They were optimized for resilience under unstable condition, not efficiency under stable ones. They maintained redundancy at every level. They accepted higher average effort in exchange for lower catastrophic risk. They distributed failure across multiple independent systems rather than concentrating it in single points. This fundamental difference explains why modern humans facing supply chain collapse begin starving in weeks, while prehistoric humans facing ice ages survived for millennia. Prehistoric starvation prevention relied on multiple interlocking systems, each providing backup for the others. The first system was seasonal food intelligence, a form of environmental knowledge so detailed it bordered on predictive science. Prehistoric humans did not simply wander hoping to find food. They maintained mental maps of resource availability that tracked dozens of species across seasonal cycles, microclimates, and multi-year patterns. They knew when specific plants fruited, where animal herds migrated, which water sources persisted through drought, and how weather patterns affected each food source differently. This knowledge was not written. It was embodied in cultural practice, passed through generations, and continuously updated through direct observation. The second system was dietary redundancy. Modern humans typically rely on a narrow range of foods. Prehistoric humans exploited everything edible within their environment. Archaeological sites reveal consumption of dozens of plant species, multiple animal types, insects, shellfish, eggs, and various other resources. This breadth meant that the failure of any single food source, even a primary one, did not collapse the entire dietary system. When mammoth herds declined, populations shifted to smaller game, fish, plants, and other alternatives. The calories were harder to acquire, but remained accessible. The third system was fat and calorie prioritization. Prehistoric hunters did not simply kill animals. They processed them for maximum caloric extraction, with particular emphasis on fat. Fat contains 9 calories per gram compared to 4 for protein or carbohydrates. It stores efficiently in the body and provides essential fatty acids for brain function and hormone production. Archaeological evidence shows consistent patterns of bone marrow extraction, organ consumption, and fat rendering that indicate sophisticated understanding of caloric density, even without formal nutritional science. The fourth system was opportunistic protein acquisition. Rather than depending on single large kills, most prehistoric populations maintained constant low-level protein intake through trapping, fishing, insect collection, and scavenging. These small-scale protein sources required less energy investment per calorie returned and provided steady nutritional baseline even when large game was unavailable. The fifth system involved delayed return food sources. While we often assume prehistoric humans consumed food immediately, evidence suggests various preservation and storage methods existed long before agriculture. Smoking, drying, fermenting, freezing in cold climates, and caching in protected locations all extended food availability beyond immediate harvests. These techniques created temporal buffers that smoothed consumption across lean periods. The sixth system was social food redistribution. Prehistoric human groups were not collections of individuals competing for scarce resources. They were cooperative units that shared food according to complex social obligations. Successful hunters distributed meat to group members, regardless of individual contribution to the hunt. This practice, documented extensively in modern hunter-gatherer societies and inferred from prehistoric settlement patterns, functioned as distributed food insurance. Individual hunting failure did not translate to individual starvation as long as the group maintained collective success. The seventh system was migration as starvation prevention. Unlike modern populations anchored to fixed infrastructure, prehistoric humans could relocate to follow resources. When local conditions deteriorated, groups moved. This mobility was not random wandering, but structured movement along established routes toward known alternative resources. The entire territory, not just immediate surroundings, served as the effective food system. These systems faced their ultimate tests during periods of total ecological collapse that dwarf any modern food crisis. The Younger Dryas event, occurring approximately 12,800 years ago, plunged much of the northern hemisphere back into ice age conditions within decades. Temperatures dropped dramatically. Forests died. Animal populations crashed. The event lasted over 1,000 years. Human populations in affected regions did not disappear. Archaeological evidence shows adaptation rather than extinction. Settlement patterns shifted. Dietary compositions changed. Tool technologies evolved toward processing different food sources. The interlocking systems described above absorbed the shock through combined flexibility. Earlier glacial periods presented even more extreme challenges. During peak glaciation, ice sheets covered much of northern Europe and North America. Sea levels dropped over 100 meters, radically altering coastlines and ecosystems. Entire biomes shifted thousands of kilometers from their previous locations. Human populations tracked these shifts. They followed retreating game. They exploited newly exposed coastal shelves. They adapted their technologies to new prey species. The process was not painless or costless. Population sizes fluctuated. Some regional groups likely perished entirely, but the species survived, and core populations maintained continuity across tens of thousands of years of repeated climate catastrophe. This survival was not accidental or lucky. It reflected structural resilience built into every aspect of prehistoric human food systems. Redundancy prevented single points of failure. Flexibility allowed rapid adaptation. Mobility enabled relocation when local conditions became unviable. Social cooperation distributed risk across groups. Knowledge transmission preserved essential survival information across generations. Modern humans have lost almost all of these capabilities. We have lost dietary redundancy. Most people in developed nations eat fewer than 20 species regularly, with 3 crops: wheat, rice, and corn, providing the majority of global calories. The failure of any one of these systems would trigger widespread starvation within months. We have lost seasonal food intelligence. The average person cannot identify more than a handful of edible wild plants and has no knowledge of local animal behavior, seasonal patterns, or environmental indicators. This knowledge has been outsourced to industrial systems that operate invisibly until they fail. We have lost fat and calorie prioritization. Modern dietary culture often actively avoids the highest calorie foods, treating fat as undesirable rather than essential. We have lost the physiological conditioning to process nutrient-dense but challenging foods that sustained prehistoric populations. We have lost mobility. Modern populations are anchored to fixed infrastructure, mortgages, jobs, and social networks that cannot relocate. When local food systems fail, people cannot simply move to functional alternatives. We have lost social food redistribution. Modern food systems operate through market exchange, requiring money rather than social relationships. Those without purchasing power have no claim on available food, regardless of community membership. Most critically, we have lost the psychological conditioning for scarcity. Prehistoric humans experienced hunger regularly and developed cognitive and emotional frameworks for managing it. Modern humans in developed nations often experience psychological collapse at minor food inconvenience. The transition from abundance to scarcity triggers panic, hoarding behavior, and social breakdown that accelerates systemic failure. This is not moral judgment, it is systems analysis. Modern humans are optimized for modern conditions. When those conditions disappear, the optimization becomes maladaptation. The knowledge that prevented prehistoric starvation did not disappear through stupidity or carelessness. It disappeared because it stopped being necessary. Agriculture changed the fundamental logic of human food systems. Rather than adapting to environments, humans began modifying environments to produce predictable outputs. This approach succeeded spectacularly under stable conditions, enabling population densities impossible for hunter-gatherers and generating the surplus that built civilization. But it also eliminated the selection pressure that maintained distributed survival knowledge. Skills that were not practiced disappeared within generations. Knowledge that was not transmitted was lost forever. Within a few thousand years of agricultural adoption, most human populations had lost the ability to survive without their artificial food systems. This loss was invisible during periods of stability. It becomes visible only during collapse, when the skills that preserved human lineages through ice ages and volcanic winters no longer exist in the populations that need them. The uncomfortable implication is that modern humans are simultaneously the most numerous and potentially the most fragile population in our species' history. We have built systems of extraordinary productive capacity and extraordinary vulnerability. We have traded resilience for efficiency at every level. The prehistoric humans who survived total collapse left no writings, no theories, no explicit instructions. They left bones that show survival, tools that show adaptation, and settlement patterns that show mobility. They solved the engineering problem of starvation through systems we have since dismantled and largely forgotten. Whether that knowledge could be reconstructed, whether it remains relevant in a world of 8 billion people, whether the skills lost could be relearned before they might be needed, these are questions that archaeology cannot answer. But the record is clear on one point. Humans have faced conditions far worse than any modern crisis and emerged with populations intact. They did so not through heroism or luck, but through systems engineered across countless generations to prevent exactly the outcome we now consider inevitable. Those ancient populations faced other challenges equally threatening. Where they gathered, where they sheltered, where they processed food, they accumulated waste, contamination, and pathogenic risk. How they managed these invisible threats determined survival as surely as food acquisition itself.